Four Scores, The Bright Eyes of Philadelphia by Saren Ong. Chapter 1, Zombie Street. Late afternoon light bled across Kensington like a tired wound that refused to close. At the corner of Kensington Avenue and Allegheny Avenue, the elevated tracks of the SEPTA Market-Frankford line rattled overhead, steel screaming against steel. The noise did not disturb the tents pitched beneath it. Nothing disturbed the tents anymore. They were pitched in rows along the sidewalk like a defeated army. Blue tarps, mold-blackened nylon, cardboard pallets slick with rainwater and old urine. Smoke from small fires drifted low and sour, clinging to the brick storefronts that once sold jewelry, shoes, and wedding dresses. Jessie stood near a boarded pharmacy window, swaying. She had once been a dental assistant in Bensalem. That felt like another woman's life. Now her cheeks were hollowed into sharp planes, and the sores on her forearms oozed pale fluid through crusted gauze. Her eyes were unfocused, but they tracked the small bag in the dealer's hand with animal precision. 20, the dealer said. Jessie fumbled in her pocket and handed over crumpled bills damp with sweat. The dealer passed her the folded wax paper packet without ceremony. Trank, xylazine and fentanyl. A horse tranquilizer married to an opioid that kissed your brain and drowned it in warm static. Jessie staggered toward her tent beneath the tracks. Around her, other bodies leaned at impossible angles, backs bent backward over milk crates, heads lolling forward, knees locked stiff. Some twitched in small, involuntary spasms. Fingers jerked like broken marionette strings. Zombie Street. The nickname wasn't fair. It was worse than that. Jessie ducked into her tent and sat cross-legged on a stained sleeping bag. She prepared the dose with the slow reverence of someone lighting a prayer candle. Her hands trembled as she tied off her arm. The needle slid into scar tissue with a familiar resistance. The world softened. Sound dulled. The rumble of the train overhead stretched into a long metallic sigh. Jessie leaned back, her head tilted, her mouth hung open. Her eyes did not close. Outside, dusk fell. The camp quieted into that strange suspended stillness particular to Kensington after dark. Not sleep, not safety, just pause. A stray dog barked once and went silent. Somewhere down the block, a woman screamed obscenities into the void. Then the elevated tracks trembled again, but no train passed. The metal vibrated with a rhythm too irregular to be machinery. Jessie's tent shuddered. She didn't react. A shadow moved across the nylon, large, broad-shouldered. It blocked what little streetlight filtered through the grime. Something heavy landed on top of the tent. The poles bent inward with a metallic snap. Jessie's head rolled to the side. Her pupils widened slightly. Claws pierced the fabric, not tearing, piercing. 4 curved punctures punched through the tarp, then dragged downward in one long, shrieking rip. Cold air flooded in. Jessie blinked once. She saw them. 2 red lights suspended in darkness, not glowing like LED, not reflecting like animal eyes, burning, low, intelligent, fixed on her. The thing lowered its head. Its breath smelled of old meat and wet earth, its jaws parted, teeth longer than a dog's. Jessie tried to move. Her limbs responded in a sluggish tremor. The creature lunged. The tent collapsed inward in a storm of fabric and snapping fiberglass. There was a wet, meaty sound. A single short scream cut off mid-breath. Then silence. When the creature emerged, it carried Jessie in its mouth the way a wolf carried a fawn. Her arm dragged limply against the pavement, leaving a streak of dark red across the sidewalk. The thing reared back on powerful hind legs. Its fur, if it was fur, looked matted and uneven, clinging to a body too angular to be fully animal. It leapt. Clawed hands caught the edge of the elevated rail platform. With terrifying ease, it hauled itself upward into the darkness beneath the tracks. Only a smear of blood remained below, and the faint sound of chewing echoed from above. California, Philadelphia? Natalia asked, flipping her hair over one shoulder as she sat cross-legged on Tyler's couch. Tyler Raines stood by the whiteboard in his Orange County apartment, a still frame from a news clip frozen on the television behind him. The headline read, "Missing on Kensington. Police deny foul play." He capped the marker and turned. "Homeless population disappearing?" he said. "Multiple eyewitnesses reporting red eyes in the dark." Puck leaned back in the recliner, boots propped on the coffee table. "Red eyes. Sure it's not just crack and raccoons?" Audrey, seated beside Tyler, tapped on her tablet. "It's not crack, and raccoons don't drag full-grown adults into elevated rail lines." She looked up. "There's a pattern." Tyler smiled slightly. That was Audrey. Precision. Data first. Natalia leaned forward. Monsters on Zombie Street? That's viral. Puck smirked. We're really flying across the country because junkies think they saw Satan? Tyler picked up the remote and rewound the clip. A gaunt man with trembling hands stared into the camera. They got bright eyes, the man whispered. Big as bears. Tyler paused the frame. Even if it's a cult, he said, it's something. Audrey's lips curved faintly. And something means traffic. Puck stood and stretched. Road trip then, Natalia clapped. 4 scores goes east. The road. The white Mercedes Sprinter hummed along the interstate, loaded with camera gear, hard cases, medical kits, and more weaponry than their YouTube audience would ever know about. Tyler drove. Audrey sat shotgun, feet tucked under her, reading historical archives about Philadelphia. Natalia and Puck occupied the back seats, arguing about whether Philly cheesesteaks were overrated. West Coast bias, Natalia declared. Bread, meat, cheese, Puck countered. We invented better. Tyler smiled faintly. Despite the joking, there was an undercurrent of focus. They had been chased by cultists before, investigated abandoned hospitals, exposed a trafficking ring in Nevada. But something about this one felt different. The vagrant's eyes in the news clip hadn't looked high. They'd looked terrified. Philadelphia, first night. The Red Rocket Motel flickered under a dying neon sign. Inside, the wallpaper peeled in long curls, exposing damp plaster beneath. They gathered in Tyler's room after unloading equipment. Let's split tomorrow, Tyler said. Puck, Natalia, street interviews. Audrey and I will research the cannibal case. Natalia lay back on the bed dramatically. Cannibal cults are so 19th century. Audrey didn't smile. The arrest was 2005, she said. Puck raised a brow. That recent? Audrey nodded. Man's dog walked the neighborhood with a severed hand in its mouth. Police found bodies in his freezer. Thayer Street. Tyler added, 4 blocks from Kensington. Silence settled. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. Natalia rolled onto her side. Okay, that's good content. No one laughed. Midnight. In an alley off Kensington, beneath a mural faded by years of neglect, 6 tents clustered together. A small fire crackled in a metal trash can. Mike sat beside it, rubbing his hands for warmth. Jessie didn't come back, a woman muttered. She probably OD'd, another said. Mike shook his head. No, she was fine. Above them, the elevated track groaned. One of the men glanced up. Y'all hear that? Something landed on the platform above. Then another. Heavy. Coordinated. The fire flickered violently. A shadow dropped down the stairwell leading from the platform to the street. Tall. Broad. Then a second shadow. Then a third. The first creature stepped into the weak orange light of the trash fire. Fur matted in patches. Skin stretched taut over angular bones. Its face elongated into a snout too narrow to be a bear's. And its eyes, bright red. Mike scrambled backward. Run! He screamed. One of the creatures lunged, jaws snapping around a man's shoulder. Bone cracked audibly as it lifted him off the ground. Another slammed into a tent, crushing it flat with something heavy and clawed. Screams filled the alley, blood sprayed across brick. One woman tried to crawl beneath the car. A ghoul reached under, seized her ankle, and dragged her out screaming. Teeth tore into her abdomen. Steam rose as warm organs spilled onto cold pavement. Mike ran. Behind him, something bounded with terrifying speed. He risked a glance back. The creature chasing him moved on all fours, spine flexing like a predator. Its red eyes locked onto his. It leapt. Mike felt claws rake across his back, slicing through jacket and skin. He stumbled forward. The creature caught him by the collar and yanked him upward effortlessly. Mike screamed until the jaws closed around his throat. The alley went quiet again. Bones crunched, flesh tore. Above, on the elevated rail platform, dark shapes hauled bodies into the tunnel. The chewing sounds continued long after the fire died out. Far across the city in a dim motel room, Tyler stirred in his sleep. He didn't know why, but somewhere beneath the rumble of distant trains, something ancient had awakened, and it was hungry. Morning in Philadelphia arrived gray and damp, as though the city had sweated through a fever. Tyler stood by the motel window watching traffic crawl along North Broad Street. A SEPTA bus hissed to a stop below, brakes exhaling like something tired of carrying the city's weight. Audrey stepped up beside him, holding 2 coffees. You didn't sleep. I did, Tyler said. You're lying. He took the cup and smiled faintly. Bad feeling. Audrey leaned against his shoulder. Good, that means you're paying attention. Across the hall, Natalia's laughter burst through the thin motel walls. Puck's voice followed. I'm not wearing that. I look like I sell incense. You do sell incense, Natalia shot back. Tyler exhaled and turned from the window. Let's go. Kensington, daylight. The four score split the intersection of Kensington Avenue and Allegheny Avenue. Tyler and Audrey headed north toward Thayer Street. Puck and Natalia descended into the elevated entrance for the Septe Market Frankfurt line. The platform smelled like stale beer and electrical grease. Two groups occupied opposite ends of the car once they boarded. On one side, 5 men in layered rags, some barefoot, some clutching bundles of incense sticks tied with twine. Their hair hung in greasy ropes. One carried a wooden cane carved with Arabic script. On the other side, 3 men wearing tzitzit hanging from beneath long shirts, their side curls tight and deliberate, eyes sharp with anger. The rail car lurched forward. The man with the cane stepped toward the center aisle. The rails belong to the sons of Allah, he announced. You cannot preach here. One of the men with tzitzit stepped forward, chest out. Jesus preached on roads and bridges. The rail is a bridge. A murmur rippled through passengers. Natalia's eyes sparkled. She pulled out her phone and began live streaming. Good morning, my bright-eyed people, she whispered dramatically. We are on the SEPTA line where apparently holy war is about to break out. Puck rubbed his temple. The shouting escalated. Incense sticks were shoved. A shoulder slammed into a chest. The cane swung first. It cracked across a man's jaw. Blood sprayed across the subway pole. Chaos erupted. Natalia angled the camera closer. World Star Jerusalem, she whispered. One of the ragged men noticed. His gaze fixed on Natalia's phone. His nostrils flared. He pushed through the scuffle and advanced toward her. Stop recording. Natalia kept filming. The man raised his hand. Puck moved before the man's arm fully extended. A tight left hook snapped across the attacker's jaw. There was a wet, cracking pop. The man's head twisted unnaturally before he dropped flat to the floor. Blood pooled beneath him, thick and dark. The rest of the sons of Allah turned toward Puck with fury. 3 rushed him. Puck stepped into them. His first strike drove into a liver. The man folded instantly, bile spraying from his mouth. The second attacker swung the cane wildly. Puck caught it mid-arc, twisted, and drove his elbow into the man's collarbone. Bone snapped audibly. The third tackled him around the waist. They hit the floor hard. Puck drove his thumb into the attacker's eye socket. Not enough to blind, just enough to force retreat. Natalia backed against the rail door, still streaming. 3,000 viewers, she hissed. One of the tzitzit-wearing men lunged toward Natalia in confusion and fear. Natalia shifted her weight. Her leg snapped upward in a sharp kick to his knee. The joint bent sideways. He screamed and collapsed. The train screeched to a stop at the next platform. Passengers spilled out. The remaining cultists dragged their unconscious leader off the train. The man Puck had first punched lay unmoving. But as the doors closed, his fingers twitched. Puck noticed. The man's jaw hung crooked. His teeth were stained with blood. His chest did not rise. Yet his fingers moved. Puck's jaw tightened. That's not normal. Natalia ended the stream. Peak viewership, 3,206. Puck didn't smile. Thayer Street. Tyler and Audrey stood at the edge of Thayer Street, 4 blocks from Kensington. The row houses here were older, brick darkened by decades of soot. At the far end of the street stood Sheridan Elementary School. Across from it, a crematorium. Its chimney rose like a blackened finger against the sky. Audrey's gaze lingered on it. The cannibal lived 4 houses down, Tyler said. They walked past boarded windows and faded stoops. An elderly woman watched them from behind lace curtains. Tyler knocked on the crematorium's side door. After a long moment, it opened. A man in his 70s stood there, thin, gray hair slicked back, skin pale as milk, eyes dull. Yes? He asked. His voice was dry. Tyler introduced himself politely, flashing a friendly smile. We're researching a case from 2005. Cannibal arrest on this street. The old man stared at him. No story, he said flatly. The dead are the dead. Audrey stepped slightly closer. Throughout the exchange, she watched his chest, watched for breath. Nothing. No rise, no fall. No subtle swallow in his throat, no pulse fluttering at the temple. She strained her hearing. Nothing. No heartbeat, not even faint. Just silence. She grabbed Tyler's wrist gently. We should go, she said calmly. The mortician's eyes flicked to her. They held. For a second, his pupils seemed too red, not glowing, but tinted, like blood beneath thin ice. The door shut softly. They walked halfway down the block before Tyler spoke. What? He wasn't breathing. Tyler stopped. What? No chest movement, no heartbeat. The sound of a distant train echoed faintly. Tyler turned slowly to look back at the crematorium chimney. Smoke drifted lazily from it, but no heat shimmer rose. Jolly Wanker Diner? Night. The diner sat along Market Street, neon sign buzzing in defiance of exhaustion. They sat in a booth near the window. Plates of schnitzel, fries, and soda bottles cluttered the table. They compared notes. Rail guy didn't breathe after I knocked him out, Puck said quietly. Tyler and Audrey exchanged a glance. Natalia leaned forward. Mortician didn't either. The air seemed to thicken. Before Audrey could lift her fork, the diner door opened. 7 men entered, pale, veins thick and black beneath their skin like oil trapped in glass. Their eyes were too still. They surrounded the booth silently. One leaned down slightly. You will come with us. He opened his jacket just enough to reveal a long, low, serrated knife tucked against his waist. Audrey didn't hesitate. She grabbed her heavy ceramic plate and hurled it into the nearest man's face. It shattered. Fragments cut his cheek open to bone. He didn't flinch. Audrey rose smoothly from the booth. Her elbow drove upward into his jaw with surgical precision. The impact lifted him nearly off his feet. He crashed backward into a table. Tyler was already moving. A kick snapped into another attacker's knee. The joint bent backward with a sickening crack. The man fell, then began pushing himself back up. Natalia slid across the booth seat and launched into a sambo sweep, taking another man's legs out from under him. She followed with a downward knife slash across his forearm. Blood sprayed. He grinned. Puck met two at once. He broke one wrist with a precise outward twist, drove a palm strike into the other's throat. The cartilage crunched. Still, they kept rising. Even with broken bones, even with torn flesh. Audrey ducked a wild swing and drove her fist into a man's ribs. She felt something give beneath her knuckles. The man coughed and laughed. Dark blood trickled from his lips. Tyler grabbed a chair and smashed it across one attacker's back. Wood splintered. The man collapsed. Tyler shouted, "Break their legs!" Puck pivoted and stomped down on a kneecap. Bone exploded outward in a spray of white fragments. Natalia sliced behind another's ankle, severing tendon. Audrey swept a final attacker's legs from beneath him and stomped his knee sideways. They ran. Behind them, bodies writhed and crawled across broken tile. One man dragged himself by his forearms, jaw hanging crooked, whispering something in German. The diner owner stood frozen behind the counter. "What the hell were those?" he whispered. Tyler didn't answer. Outside, the streetlights flickered. Somewhere in the dark between buildings, 2 red eyes blinked once, watching. Back in the motel room, silence pressed in on them. "They don't feel pain," Natalia said quietly. "They don't breathe," Audrey added. Puck flexed his bruised knuckles. "And they bleed dark." Tyler stared at the map of Philadelphia spread across the bed. "Kensington," he said softly. "Thayer Street, Market." He traced a line connecting them. Rail lines. He looked up. "If we want answers, we go underground." The rumble of a late-night SEPTA train passed beneath the city, and far below that, something ancient shifted in its nest. The tunnels beneath Philadelphia did not sleep. They breathed. Slowly. Wet air clung to brick like sweat. Rust bled down iron supports in long brown tears. Somewhere in the distance, metal clanged in irregular rhythms, echoing like hollow bones striking each other. Tyler adjusted the strap of his backpack as the 4 scores stood at the edge of a service access hatch near Center City. Above them, traffic flowed along Market Street like nothing beneath it mattered. Below them, darkness. Puck chambered around into his Colt 1911 with a quiet metallic snap. Natalia rolled her neck and flexed her knife hand. Audrey checked the chemical flares clipped to her belt. Tyler lifted his flashlight. "Record everything," he said. They descended. Into the veins. The access ladder dropped into a narrow service corridor that smelled of stagnant water and ammonia. Their boots splashed into a shallow puddle at the bottom. Graffiti covered the walls. Crude tags, gang signs, and something older beneath them. German phrases carved directly into brick. Natalia traced one with her fingers. "Was zur Hölle ist das?" Audrey translated softly. "What in hell is this?" Puck exhaled. Charming. A train roared past on the adjacent track, wind blasting through the tunnel like a hurricane in a coffin. When it passed, silence returned. They advanced. The flashlight beams cut thin white tunnels through the black. Rats skittered along pipes overhead, ordinary rats, until Tyler froze. Ahead, the tunnel widened into an abandoned platform. Old signage hung crooked from the ceiling. The paint had long since peeled away, leaving ghostly outlines of forgotten advertisements. And on the far side, movement. Dozens of red dots blinked open in the dark, low to the ground, watching. Natalia whispered, "Please tell me those are reflectors." Tyler lifted his light. The beam revealed fur, but not normal fur. These rats were the size of house cats, their bodies swollen, muscles bunching beneath mangy coats. Their eyes glowed, not reflecting but glowing faintly from within. One step forward, its whiskers twitched, its incisors were too long, curving outward like miniature tusks. Then Tyler's light swept further. The nest. God! The nest. A mound of garbage, bone, and fabric piled nearly 6 feet high. Human limbs protruded from it. A hand, a foot. A rib cage picked clean except for strands of tendon. Steam rose faintly from something fresh. The smell hit them next. Rotting meat and iron-rich blood baked into damp concrete. Audrey swallowed hard. They've been feeding. A rat leapt onto the mound and tore a strip of flesh from a human thigh. Its mouth worked greedily. Then it turned its glowing gaze toward them and screamed. Not a squeak. A shrill, piercing shriek that echoed down the tunnel like metal scraping bone. The entire nest erupted. Hundreds of bodies shifted at once. Rats poured down from pipes, from ceiling beams, from inside discarded suitcases. Tyler shouted, "Back!" The first wave hit. Puck fired twice. 2 rats exploded mid-leap, spraying black-tinged blood across the wall. Natalia slashed through one midair, its body splitting open in a shower of viscera that splattered her jacket. Audrey stomped another flat, boot-crushing skull with a sickening crunch. But there were too many. They swarmed around their legs, claws scrabbling for purchase. One latched onto Tyler's calf. Teeth pierced fabric and skin. He grunted and kicked hard, slamming it into the tunnel wall. It burst like a dropped melon. "Move!" he barked. They retreated down the track bed as the swarm pursued. The tunnel curved sharply. A distant rumble vibrated through the rails. Train! Tyler saw it instantly. Side alcove! They dove into a maintenance niche as headlights exploded around the bend. The train roared past inches from their faces, wind tearing at their clothes. Rats caught in its path vanished beneath steel wheels with wet, snapping pops. But many survived. As the train disappeared, the swarm reformed and charged again. Natalia ignited a chemical flare and hurled it into the mass. White light exploded outward. The rats shrieked, recoiling slightly from the brightness. Audrey seized the moment. Up the platform stairs! They sprinted toward an active station. As they burst from the tunnel mouth, a uniformed officer standing near the platform shouted, "Hey! Get off the tracks!" Behind them, the rats poured into the stairwell like a black river. Passengers screamed. Tyler spun and fired down the steps. Rats tumbled over each other. Puck grabbed a fallen metal barricade and wedged it across the stairway entrance. Natalia hacked at claws reaching through the gaps. Audrey crushed skulls under her boots with brutal efficiency. Bodies piled quickly, the stairwell clogged with carcasses. Still the rats pushed forward, climbing over their dead. A man in a SEPTA uniform stared in horror. "What the hell?" Tyler grabbed him by the collar. "Evacuate!" Within minutes, transit security flooded the platform. Then sirens. Then something else. Black SUVs screeched to a stop outside. Men in tactical gear poured down the station stairs. No insignia, no patches. Flamethrowers. One barked, "Clear the area." Jets of fire roared down the stairwell. Flames engulfed the rat mass. The smell of burning fur and cooking meat filled the station. Rats shrieked in a sound so high it hurt to hear. Within seconds, the stairwell became an inferno. The agents advanced methodically, incinerating everything. Tyler locked eyes with one of them. The man's expression was calm, professional, as if this wasn't the first time. Aftermath. Light rail service was suspended within the hour. News crews gathered outside, blocked by police tape. The fourscore stood a short distance away, blending into the crowd. Natalia wiped drying rat blood from her cheek. That was not normal wildlife. Audrey examined Tyler's calf wound. "You're fine. Superficial." Puck watched the black SUVs. Those weren't regular feds. As if summoned, one of the agents approached, tall, mid-40s, short-cropped hair, eyes calculating. "You four were in the tunnels," he said calmly. Tyler didn't answer immediately. The man extended a hand. "Commander Elias Ward." He did not specify agency. "You encountered contaminated fauna," Ward continued. "Contaminated how?" Audrey asked. Ward's gaze lingered on her. "Not your concern." Tyler held his stare. "We've already made it our concern." Ward's jaw tightened slightly. "Leave the city," he said. "You've seen enough." Behind him, more agents descended into the tunnels carrying heavy weapons and sealed metal containers. One container lid shifted briefly. Inside, a rat corpse twitched. Black ichor leaked from its open mouth. Ward noticed Tyler watching. He stepped closer, voice lowering. "You have no idea what you're standing on." He turned and walked away. Night falls. Back at the motel, the air felt heavier. Tyler replayed footage from Natalia's GoPro, frame by frame. One clip caught his attention. Just before the rats charged, something moved behind them in the darkness of the platform. Tall, humanoid. Watching, red eyes glowing faintly. Audrey leaned in. "That's not a rat." Puck folded his arms. "That's a shepherd." Silence settled over the room. Tyler exhaled slowly. "Tomorrow we go back to Thayer Street." Natalia gave a tired half smile to the breathing corpse. Outside, a train rumbled faintly. But beneath the tracks, far deeper than rats, something larger shifted. And somewhere in the darkness, a voice whispered in Old German, "Die Jagd beginnt." The hunt begins. Rain fell over North Philadelphia in a thin, cold sheet that blurred the streetlights into smeared halos. Thayer Street looked older at night. The row homes stood shoulder to shoulder like tired sentries, brick facades scarred by decades of neglect. At the far end, beyond the dark outline of Sheridan Elementary School, the crematorium chimney rose against the sky. No smoke tonight. No glow from the furnace windows. Just stillness. Tyler killed the sprinter's headlights half a block away. "Cameras live," Natalia whispered. Red recording lights blinked to life. Puck chambered around with quiet efficiency. Audrey flexed her fingers, rolling her shoulders once, centering herself. "Remember," Tyler said softly, "we confirm. We don't escalate unless necessary." Puck gave him a look. "They sent 7 after us in a diner." Tyler didn't argue. They moved. The door, the crematorium's side entrance loomed ahead. Warped wood swollen by rain, the brass handle tarnished green. Tyler knocked. The sound echoed strangely inside. No answer. He knocked again. Nothing. Puck stepped forward and tried the handle. It turned, unlocked. The door creaked open with a long, splintering groan. The air inside was colder than outside, and dry, too dry, like the inside of a sealed tomb. They stepped in. The foyer was modest, a small desk, faded floral wallpaper, a hallway leading deeper into the building. A faint metallic smell hung in the air. Iron. Audrey whispered, "Blood. Not fresh. Old. Soaked into wood." They advanced down the hallway. On the left, a viewing room with folding chairs. On the right, preparation chambers. Tyler pushed open the nearest door. Inside sat a stainless steel autopsy table. Empty. But the drain at its base was dark. Thick residue clung to the edges. Natalia aimed her camera closer, zooming. The residue wasn't dried brown. It was nearly black. Like the ichor from the rats. Puck's jaw tightened. Same contamination. A floorboard creaked behind them. They spun. The mortician stood at the end of the hallway. Unmoving. His thin frame seemed even more brittle under the dim lights. "You were told to leave," he said calmly. His voice carried no breath behind it. Tyler stepped forward slowly. "You don't breathe." The old man tilted his head slightly. "And yet I speak." Audrey felt the temperature drop further. She listened again. No heartbeat. Nothing. Tyler's voice remained steady. "What are you?" The mortician smiled. It was subtle at first, then wider. Too wide. His lips stretched back farther than they should have. The skin at the corners split slightly. No blood flowed. "We are what remains," he said. The lights flickered, then went out. Darkness. For half a second, absolute black swallowed them. Then flashlights snapped on. Beams cut jagged paths through dust motes. The hallway was empty. The mortician gone. A sound echoed below, a low scraping from beneath the floor. "Basement," Puck said. They found the door behind the autopsy room. It led downward. Brick steps spiraled into darkness. The smell intensified with each step. Rot. Wet fur. Burned fat. At the bottom, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber, the furnace room. Old industrial cremation ovens lined one wall. Iron doors, rust flaked off in red scales, but something had been built beyond them. A secondary chamber carved into brick, German scripture etched along the walls, candles burned in sconces made of bone, and at the center a mound of bodies, stacked carefully, not discarded, arranged, men, women, a teenager, some partially eaten, others untouched, preserved. Natalia swallowed hard. This isn't random feeding. No, Audrey said softly, it's ritual. A shape shifted atop the mound. The mortician rose from among the corpses like something emerging from a grave. But he wasn't old anymore. His spine straightened with audible pops. His shoulders broadened, fur pushed through thin skin along his forearms. His jaw elongated slightly, teeth lengthening. His eyes brightened from dull red to burning crimson. Tyler raised his pistol. Don't. The ghoul moved faster than any human. He crossed the room in a blur. Puck fired twice. Bullets struck center mass. The impact spun the ghoul sideways. He hit the wall and rebounded upright instantly. No breath, no pain. Audrey lunged in low. Her elbow struck the creature's knee joint. Bone cracked sideways. The ghoul dropped briefly. Natalia slashed across its forearm. Black blood sprayed. It hissed. Not in pain, in irritation. The ghoul grabbed Natalia by the throat and lifted her. Her feet left the ground. Tyler fired into its shoulder. The arm jerked. Natalia twisted midair, hooking her leg around its elbow and driving her knife upward into its bicep. The tendon severed. The arm slackened. She dropped and rolled. Puck closed distance instantly. A brutal palm strike shattered the ghoul's nose. Cartilage exploded outward. It barely reacted. Instead, it lunged for Audrey. Its jaws opened impossibly wide, far wider than human anatomy allowed. Audrey pivoted sideways and drove her forearm across its throat. She felt coarse fur against her skin. It bit down, missed her artery by inches. Teeth sliced her sleeve. Tyler slammed a metal gurney into its side. The ghoul crashed into one of the furnace doors. The iron buckled inward. Puck tackled it. The two hit the ground. Puck drove repeated elbows into its skull. Bone cracked. The ghoul's claws raked across Puck's ribs, shredding his shirt and opening shallow but bloody gouges. Natalia plunged her blade into its thigh. Audrey seized a nearby iron hook used for body handling and rammed it through the ghoul's shoulder. It pinned the creature briefly against the furnace frame. Tyler stepped forward. Who sent you? The ghoul's burning eyes locked onto his. Its voice came out layered, as if several throats spoke at once. We came in ships of wood. Its jaw clicked unnaturally. We came with the faithful. Audrey's heart pounded. German immigrants, she whispered. The ghoul smiled through broken teeth. You think we hide? Its gaze flicked toward the ceiling. Beneath you, we grow. It jerked violently. The iron hook tore free. The ghoul slammed backward into the furnace. Its body moved with horrifying fluidity. Fur spreading further along its spine, bones popping. It leapt upward, clawed hands catching the basement ceiling beams. Then it was gone. Vanished into a narrow service shaft no human could fit through. Silence returned, except for their breathing, and the faint drip of black blood onto concrete. Revelation, Tyler lowered his pistol slowly. Audrey stared at the mound of corpses. They don't rot, she said quietly. They preserve themselves. Natalia wiped black blood from her knife. And they're organized. Puck pressed a hand to his bleeding ribs. They're not just feeding. Tyler looked toward the service shaft. He said they grow. Above them, somewhere under the rail lines, a deep rumble vibrated through brick. Not a train. Something else. Something heavier. Something waking. Audrey stepped closer to Tyler. They're not animals. No, Tyler said softly. They're a colony. The candles along the walls flickered violently. One by one, they extinguished, plunging the chamber into darkness, and from the tunnel beyond the furnace came a distant chorus. Low, harmonized, ancient German hymn tones rising through brick like a funeral song. The fourscore stood still in the dark, and for the first time since arriving in Philadelphia, they understood. This wasn't a drug ring. This wasn't a cannibal cult. This was older, hungrier, and it had been here for generations. The hymn did not follow a melody. It followed memory. Low male voices layered beneath the earth, vibrating through brick and bone. The language was unmistakably German, but older in tone, Lutheran cadence twisted into something mournful and predatory. Tyler stood in the furnace chamber, head tilted slightly as the final echoes faded. They're coordinated, he said. Audrey nodded. That wasn't random vocalization. That was structured. Natalia exhaled. They sing after they eat? Puck adjusted the makeshift bandage around his ribs. Blood had soaked through his shirt, but the wounds were shallow. No, he said quietly. They sing before something. Silence fell again. Then, from deeper in the tunnel network, a single distant thud. Heavy, deliberate. The four scores looked toward the darkness beyond the furnace room. Something moved down there, large, slow, and unhurried. Tyler's jaw tightened. We're not ready for that tonight. Reluctantly, they withdrew. Behind them, unseen in the dark of the shaft above, several pairs of red eyes watched their retreat. Research. Back at the Red Rocket Motel, exhaustion clung to them like smoke. Audrey set up her laptop immediately. Tyler stood behind her as old immigration manifests populated the screen. German immigration peaked in the 1840s, she said. Famine, political unrest. Tyler zoomed into a specific record. Ship name, De Morgenstern. Arrival, October 1847. Passengers, 312. Recorded dead at sea, 37. Audrey frowned. 37 is high. Tyler scrolled further. There's a note here. He read aloud. Bodies disposed at sea under ecclesiastical rite. Puck leaned forward. Disposed how? Audrey pulled up maritime death practices of the 19th century, typically weighted and dropped overboard. Tyler shook his head slowly. Unless they weren't. Natalia glanced between them. You're saying? I'm saying, Tyler replied quietly, if something boarded that ship, it could have fed during the crossing. 37 dead documented. That's a controlled number. Audrey's expression darkened. And once they arrived in Philadelphia, they blended. Puck finished. Tyler pulled up early property records. A Lutheran congregation established near what would later become Thayer Street, a small burial ground. Then, decades later, a crematorium built on adjacent property. Audrey stared at the screen. They embedded themselves into death infrastructure. Natalia's voice was softer now. Smart. Tyler's eyes remained fixed on the records. This wasn't random migration. He zoomed further. The founding names of the congregation. One name repeated across multiple documents for nearly 50 years. Johann Albrecht. Baptism records. Marriage officiations. Burial records. The handwriting remained identical. Across decades, Audrey whispered, he never aged. Puck folded his arms. That's your patriarch. Kensington, daylight feels wrong. Despite federal presence in the tunnels, Kensington Avenue remained active. Tents still lined sidewalks beneath the elevated tracks of SEPTA. But something had changed. The population felt thinner. Gaps between tents, abandoned sleeping bags stiff with dried blood. Tyler knelt beside one. The fabric had been sliced open from above. Clean, efficient. Natalia filmed quietly. A homeless man approached cautiously. Black, mid-40s, scarred knuckles, eyes darting. Y'all the ones from the tunnels? He asked. Puck stepped forward. Depends. I seen you on someone's phone. Tyler stood slowly. What's your name? Mike. The four scores exchanged a brief glance. Tyler kept his expression neutral. You see anything last night? Mike swallowed. They ain't animals. He pointed toward the elevated stairs. Big. Fur like a dog but wrong. That one took my cousin 2 weeks ago, South Philly, through her window. Audrey's head lifted. Window? Mike nodded quickly. Not no tent, brick house. Broke it like paper. Natalia's voice sharpened. Little girl? Mike's jaw tightened. Yeah. Silence hung heavy. Puck pulled a $20 bill from his pocket and handed it over. Mike took it and moved quickly toward a liquor store. Tyler watched him go. They're expanding, he said quietly. Audrey nodded. Territory shift. Above them, the elevated tracks groaned again. Tyler looked up instinctively. For half a second, he thought he saw movement between the steel beams. Then it was gone. South Philly. The smell hit them first. Cheesesteak grease mingling with lemongrass smoke drifting from barbecue skewers at Mifflin Square Park. Children ran across the grass. Cambodian elders played cards beneath trees. It felt normal. Too normal. Puck ordered 6 skewers from a vendor, nodding politely. Anyone been missing lately? He asked casually. The vendor's smile faded slightly. Sometimes, he said. No police? The vendor's expression hardened. They don't listen. Natalia crouched to speak with an elderly woman who clutched a rosary. Window broken, the woman whispered. No sound. No scream. Audrey examined a nearby row house where plywood covered a second-floor window. Claw marks scored the brick around it. Deep, too wide for a man's hand. Tyler measured the span silently. 8 feet, he muttered. Puck's jaw tightened. They're not just hunting addicts anymore. Natalia straightened slowly. They're bold. A sudden crash echoed from inside the boarded house. All four froze. Another crash. Wood splintering. Tyler drew his pistol. Go. They breached the door. Inside, furniture lay overturned. Blood smeared along the hallway wall. A teenage boy huddled in a corner clutching a broken chair leg. In the living room, a ghoul crouched over a body, its back arched, fur bristling along its spine. Its jaws tore flesh from a man's shoulder. The sound was wet and deliberate. It looked up, red eyes blazing. It hissed. The boy screamed. The ghoul lunged. Tyler fired twice. The bullet struck center mass, staggering it mid-leap. Puck intercepted with a flying tackle. They crashed through a coffee table. Natalia dove low, slicing at the creature's hamstring. Black blood sprayed across the wallpaper. Audrey grabbed the boy and shoved him toward the kitchen. Out the back! The ghoul slammed Puck against the wall hard enough to crack plaster. Its claws dug into his ribs again. Puck drove his thumb into its eye. The eyeball burst in a splash of dark fluid. It recoiled briefly, then kept fighting. Tyler slammed a metal lamp into its skull. Natalia stabbed upward into its lower jaw. The blade punched through palate and out behind its ear. The ghoul shrieked. Audrey seized a curtain and yanked it open. Sunlight poured in through the broken window. The ghoul froze. Its skin smoked faintly, not burning, but weakening. It snarled and lipped backward, crashing through the second-story window frame, landing on the street below in a twisted crouch. Pedestrians screamed. The ghoul bounded away at impossible speed, disappearing down the block. Silence filled the ruined house. Puck leaned against the wall, breathing hard. That confirms it, Audrey said quietly. They weaken in sunlight. Tyler stared at the broken window. They're migrating, Natalia swallowed, or preparing. The warning. As they exited the house, black SUVs screeched to a halt. The same tactical agents emerged. Commander Elias Ward stepped forward. You were told to leave, he said calmly. Tyler met his gaze. They're expanding. Ward's expression shifted slightly. Yes? He studied them for a moment. You saw one in daylight? Audrey nodded. It retreated. Ward exhaled slowly. Then the Patriarch is mobilizing. Puck crossed his arms. Define Patriarch. Ward's eyes hardened. The oldest. A low rumble vibrated faintly beneath their feet. Not a train. Not traffic. Something deeper. Ward's voice lowered. You've stirred them. Tyler's tone remained steady. They attacked first. Ward didn't argue. Instead, he glanced toward the rail lines cutting across the skyline. Something is gathering beneath Center City, he said. And if we're right, he paused, they're not just feeding anymore. Tyler felt it then. A shift in pressure, like the city itself was holding its breath. Ward turned back to his vehicles. You have 24 hours, he said. After that, this becomes a containment zone. He stepped into the SUV. The convoy pulled away. The four scores stood in the street, blood still drying on their clothes. Natalia spoke softly. So what's a patriarch do when he mobilizes? Tyler looked toward the distant silhouette of Center City. Leads. Far beneath the city streets, in a chamber carved from forgotten brick, a massive figure stirred. Long limbs unfolded, antler-like bone protrusions scraped against stone. Ancient red eyes opened slowly. And for the first time in decades, the patriarch rose from his resting slab. The hunt was no longer quiet. South Philadelphia did not look like a battlefield. It looked like life. Row homes painted in faded pastels, laundry lines stretching between back windows, the scent of garlic, grilled meat, and incense drifting over narrow sidewalks, elderly men arguing over cards outside corner stores. But when dusk fell, the light drained quickly, and the spaces between houses became teeth. Sunset watch. Tyler stood on the roof of a 3-story row home 2 blocks from Mifflin Square Park. Puck crouched beside him, binoculars raised. Audrey and Natalia remained inside the house below, cameras placed strategically across rooms. The Cambodian family that owned the home had evacuated quietly after Ward's agents advised temporary relocation. The plywood over the broken window from yesterday had been replaced with reinforced panels. Tyler didn't believe it would matter. The elevated rail lines of Septe glowed faintly in the distance. The city was too calm. Puck lowered the binoculars. Movement, he said. Across the street, a shadow detached from a narrow alley. It moved low, fast. Another shape followed, then another. Tyler counted silently. 4, all converging toward a row house 2 doors down. Lights were still on inside. Someone was home. Tyler's voice sharpened. Inside. Now. They dropped down the stairwell and burst into the street. The first ghoul hit the target house like a battering ram. The front door splintered inward. Wood fragments exploded across the entryway. A woman screamed. Tyler fired once mid-sprint. The bullet struck the ghoul's shoulder, but barely slowed it. Puck slammed into its side before it could fully enter the hallway. They crashed into a coat rack. The second ghoul vaulted through the shattered doorway. Natalia intercepted. She ducked low and sliced across its abdomen. The blade cut deep, fur parting, black blood spilling, but the creature continued forward, jaws snapping. Audrey grabbed a metal fire extinguisher from the wall and smashed it into the ghoul's skull. The impact rang like a bell. It staggered. Tyler pivoted past Puck and fired twice into the first ghoul's knee. Bone shattered outward. The leg folded grotesquely sideways. It dropped, but immediately began crawling forward on its hands. Claws dug trenches into hardwood flooring. Inside the living room, a teenage girl cowered behind a couch. Another ghoul crashed through the kitchen window at the back of the house. Glass rained across tile. The family's father attempted to block it with a chair. The ghoul bit through the wood and into his forearm in one motion. Teeth sank deep. Blood sprayed in an arc across the refrigerator. The man screamed. Audrey moved instantly. She drove her forearm into the ghoul's throat while jamming her fingers into the wound it had made, widening it with brutal precision. Black blood gushed. The creature recoiled, snarling. Natalia leapt onto its back, locking her legs around its torso and dragging her blade across its carotid region. The cut was clean, deep. The ghoul collapsed sideways into the kitchen island, still twitching. Puck wrestled the first ghoul down completely, driving repeated hammer fists into its temple. Bone fractured beneath his knuckles. The creature's claws slashed across his forearm, opening another line of blood. Tyler grabbed the injured father and shoved him toward the back exit. Run! The second-floor ceiling cracked above them. Tyler looked up. Too late. The roof buckled inward. Plaster and wood exploded downward as something massive crashed through. The patriarch landed in the living room. 8 feet tall, spine hunched, limbs elongated beyond proportion. Patches of thick, matted fur clung to shoulders and thighs. Antler-like bone protrusions jutted from its skull and shoulder blades, scraping against the ceiling. Its eyes burned brighter than any ghoul they'd seen. Not animal, not feral, aware. It stood slowly and smiled. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Tyler felt his chest tighten. This was older. Puck released the broken ghoul beneath him and rose slowly. Natalia backed toward Audrey. The patriarch's voice emerged like gravel dragged through water. You trespass in our harvest. Audrey's voice stayed steady. You're done here. The patriarch tilted its head. Its nostrils flared. It inhaled deeply. California, it whispered. The sound sent a ripple through Tyler's spine. It moved, faster than the others. One massive arm swept sideways. Tyler ducked barely in time. The blow smashed into the wall behind him, caving in brick and insulation. Puck lunged at its knee. The patriarch kicked. Puck flew backward across the room, crashing into a bookshelf hard enough to splinter it. Natalia darted in low, slashing at the back of its thigh. Her blade cut, but the muscle beneath felt denser. The patriarch backhanded her mid-motion. She slammed into the couch, air driven from her lungs. Audrey moved next. She grabbed a bottle of industrial cleaner from beneath the sink and hurled it into the patriarch's face. The liquid splashed across its eyes. It hissed sharply. Not in pain, in irritation. Tyler fired repeatedly into its chest. Each bullet struck with heavy impact, staggering it half a step at most. Black blood seeped from wounds, but they closed slowly before his eyes. Sunlight! Audrey shouted. Puck staggered to his feet and ripped down the reinforced window panel. Night air flooded in. The streetlight outside cast a weak glow, not enough. Natalia scrambled toward the back patio door and threw it open. The faint glow of the rising moon spilled in. The patriarch snarled. It grabbed a dining table and hurled it across the room. Wood shattered against the far wall. Tyler rushed forward and slammed a metal rod into the joint beneath its antler growth. The patriarch roared, a deep, resonant sound that rattled glass. For a split second, its skin smoked faintly under the faint ambient light, weakening, not burning, but lessened. It locked eyes with Tyler. You are noise, it growled. Its arm shot forward and grabbed Tyler by the collar. Tyler felt himself lifted off the ground effortlessly. Teeth closed inches from his face. Audrey launched herself upward, driving her elbow into the underside of the patriarch's jaw. Natalia stabbed upward into its exposed armpit joint. Puck grabbed its wrist and twisted with full-body leverage. The combined force wrenched its arm sideways just enough. Tyler fell free. The patriarch released a low, frustrated rumble. Then it stepped backward toward the collapsed ceiling. Soon, it said. It crouched and leapt. The remaining roof beams snapped as it burst upward and vanished into the night. The surviving ghouls dragged themselves after it, retreating through broken windows and shattered walls. Silence fell, broken only by the whimpering of the family and the crackle of settling debris. Tyler stood slowly. His collar was torn, skin bruised but intact. Puck wiped blood from his forearm. Natalia's cheek was swelling. Audrey's sleeve hung in shredded strips. They were alive, but barely. Outside, sirens wailed. Black SUVs screeched to a halt once more. Commander Elias Ward stepped from the lead vehicle. He took in the destroyed house, the bodies, the wounds. His expression hardened. "You've seen him." Tyler nodded. "The patriarch." Ward's jaw flexed. "He hasn't surfaced in 50 years. Audrey wiped black blood from her fingers. "He's mobilizing." Ward glanced toward Center City's skyline. "Yes." He looked back at them. "Tomorrow night we end this." Far beneath Philadelphia, in the deepest chamber carved from forgotten brick and bone, the patriarch settled onto its stone slab, black blood slowly knitting its wounds. Its red eyes remained open. It could feel the city shifting above. The hunt was no longer quiet. Now, it would be war. The city did not sleep that night. Police sirens bled into helicopter rotors. News vans lined intersections in South Philadelphia. Social media feeds churned with shaky phone footage of something enormous leaping across rooftops. But by sunrise, it was already being buried. Gas main explosion, gang-related home invasion, wild animal hysteria. The narrative shifted with surgical precision. By noon, black SUVs sealed off 2 blocks around the destroyed house. Uniformed officers were replaced by men in matte tactical gear with no insignia. The 4 scores were escorted to an abandoned municipal warehouse along the Delaware River. No signs, no markings. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Tyler stepped through the doors first. Rows of folding tables filled the space. Weapon crates, portable generators, monitors displaying tunnel schematics. A large digital map of Philadelphia glowed on the far wall, rail lines highlighted in red. Commander Elias Ward stood at its center. He did not greet them with hostility this time. "Welcome to the Biological Supernatural Threat Response Division," he said evenly. Natalia raised a brow. "That acronym must be terrible." Ward ignored the comment. Puck scanned the room. "How long have you known?" Ward turned slightly toward the map. "Since 1893. Silence. Audrey crossed her arms. "Explain." Ward tapped a key. The display shifted. Old black and white photographs filled the screen. Men in suits standing beside piles of skeletal remains, a collapsed church basement, handwritten German script visible on broken brick. "First documented colony discovered in Milwaukee," Ward said. "Immigrant congregation, unusually high death records, no decomposition, consumption patterns." Tyler stepped closer. "So Philadelphia isn't unique?" "No." The map zoomed outward. Red dots appeared across the Midwest and Northeast. Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Boston, parts of rural Pennsylvania, smaller pockets. Natalia's expression darkened. "How many?" Ward didn't answer directly. "Most remain dormant. They integrate into death infrastructure, mortuaries, cemeteries, crematoria." Audrey nodded slowly. "They control the disposal of evidence." "Correct." Puck looked at the red cluster around Philadelphia. "But this one isn't dormant." Ward's jaw tightened. "This one has a patriarch who has awakened." The screen shifted again. A grainy 1972 photograph appeared. A partially collapsed subway tunnel. In the corner of the frame, 2 bright eyes, tall silhouette, antler-like protrusions. Ward pointed. "Last confirmed sighting." Tyler stared at it. "That's him." Ward nodded once. "He surfaces when territory shifts. Historically, that means expansion." Natalia tilted her head slightly. "Expansion how?" Ward tapped the screen again. "Rail lines lit up like arteries. They travel beneath infrastructure. The tunnels connect to every borough." Audrey stepped forward. "And reproduction?" Ward's expression hardened. "They do not reproduce conventionally." Tyler felt the shift before he asked, "How?" Ward's voice lowered. "They convert." Silence thickened. Natalia's voice was softer now. "Convert how?" Ward looked directly at Tyler. "Selective feeding rituals. If the patriarch chooses, a victim survives the initial consumption." Audrey's stomach tightened. "And becomes?" Ward didn't blink. "A ghoul." The weight of it settled in the room. Puck exhaled slowly. "So they grow by infection." "Yes." Ward walked toward a metal case and opened it. Inside lay a severed ghoul arm preserved in a sealed containment bag. The black blood within it pulsed faintly. Audrey stepped closer. "It's still active," Ward nodded. "Undead physiology, cellular regeneration driven by unknown energy source. Sunlight weakens but does not destroy." Tyler's eyes returned to the map. "Where is he now?" Ward zoomed in. A convergence of red lines beneath Center City. "He's consolidating." The map flickered to show seismic readings. Low rhythmic vibrations deep beneath the old rail junction. Natalia frowned. "That's not train traffic." "No," Ward replied, "it's excavation." The war plan, a large blueprint rolled out across a steel table. Old 19th century church foundations connected to abandoned rail spurs. A crypt. A central chamber beneath the former Lutheran burial grounds. Tyler traced the layout with his finger. "This is their nest." Ward nodded. "Our intel suggests they're preparing a migration." Audrey's voice sharpened. "How long?" 48 hours at most." Puck folded his arms. "So we hit them first." Ward studied them for a moment. "You've already engaged the patriarch directly. That gives you value." Natalia smirked faintly. "We're influencers." Ward didn't smile. "Your leverage." He pointed to the blueprint. "We enter here. Abandoned maintenance shaft near Center City. 2 squads, flamethrowers, incendiary rounds, ultraviolet floodlights." Audrey nodded. "UV weakens them further, temporarily." Tyler's eyes remained steady. "What happens if we kill the patriarch?" Ward didn't hesitate. "The colony fractures. Without centralized control, they become feral, easier to exterminate." Puck cracked his knuckles. "Good." Ward looked at them each in turn. "This is not content." Natalia's expression shifted slightly. "This is eradication." Tyler stepped forward. "We're in." Ward studied him for a long second, then nodded once. "Then you move with us." Preparation. Weapon crates opened. Flamethrower canisters filled. Audrey modified chemical accelerants with industrial solvents to increase burn temperature. Puck tested joint targeting ammunition. Natalia adjusted GoPro mounts quietly. Tyler stood near the map, staring at the deep chamber marker. "Johann Albrecht," he murmured. Ward glanced over. "The founding name." Tyler nodded. "He's been here since 1847. Ward's voice was calm. "Then tonight, he ends." Beneath the city, far below Center City, in a chamber carved from brick and bone, the patriarch stood upright. Around him, dozens of ghouls knelt, some young, some ancient. Their fur patches varied, their bone protrusions smaller than his. The ritual chamber was lit by torchlight, reflecting off blackened walls carved with scripture. The patriarch raised one massive arm. A ghoul dragged forward a bound human, alive, crying. The patriarch lowered its head slowly. Its teeth pierced flesh carefully, not killing, not fully consuming. Black blood flowed from its mouth into the victim's wound. The human convulsed violently. Veins darkened beneath skin. Eyes rolled back. The chorus of hymn tones began again, low, harmonized. Deep beneath Philadelphia, the colony grew. Above them, the city remained unaware. But in a warehouse near the river, men and women loaded flamethrowers. Commander Elias Ward stepped toward Tyler. "Tonight," he said. Tyler nodded once. "Tonight. War in the tunnels." Midnight swallowed Center City in glass and steel reflections. Above ground, couples drifted between late-night restaurants along Market Street. Neon signs flickered. Rideshare headlights slid through intersections. Beneath it, war assembled. Entry point. The maintenance shaft near an abandoned service spur was concealed behind a corrugated steel panel marked City Utility. Commander Elias Ward stood at the opening. Behind him, 12 BSTRD operators adjusted respirators and checked fuel valves on compact flamethrowers. UV floodlights mounted to their rifles cast faint violet halos across concrete. Tyler tightened the straps on his gloves. Puck rolled his shoulders, ribs taped tight beneath his shirt. Natalia adjusted the mount on her shoulder camera. Audrey secured 2 canisters of modified accelerant to her belt. Ward looked at them once. "No improvisation unless necessary." Tyler nodded. "We follow your lead," Ward signaled. The steel panel lifted. A ladder descended into blackness. One by one, they entered the veins of the city. Descent! The air below was thicker than before, hotter. Not from machinery, from bodies. The rhythmic vibration Tyler had felt earlier pulsed through the brickwork now, a dull, organic cadence. Excavation. They reached the bottom of the shaft and formed into two columns. UV beams cut forward like pale swords. The tunnel widened quickly. Scratches scored the brick walls, long, deep gouges. Claw marks. Ahead, a low hum vibrated through the ground. Then movement. A ghoul dropped from the ceiling onto the rear operator. Its claws punched through Kevlar like paper. Teeth tore into the man's neck. Blood sprayed across the tunnel in a hot arc. Ward fired first. A jet of flame engulfed the ghoul. It shrieked, a high, layered wail, as fire crawled over its fur. It did not fall immediately. It burned while still biting. Two more ghouls charged from a side passage. Puck stepped forward and fired at the joints. One knee exploded outward. The creature collapsed but dragged itself forward on its forearms. Natalia moved in tight, severing its wrist cleanly. Black blood splattered across her boots. Audrey ignited one of her accelerant canisters and hurled it toward the advancing mass. The liquid burst against the wall, splashing across two ghouls mid-leap. Ward's flamethrower followed instantly. The corridor erupted into an inferno. The smell, burning fur, cooking flesh, old rot igniting like oil-soaked rags. The flames died quickly, leaving charred bodies twitching on the floor. One best operator lay still, his throat torn open. Ward didn't pause. Forward. The convergence. They advanced deeper. The tunnel sloped downward toward the old junction beneath Center City. The vibration grew stronger. Then, the chanting began. Low German hymn tones reverberated through the brick, dozens of voices. Tyler's pulse quickened. They turned the final corner. The chamber opened before them. Cathedral-sized, old rail arches supported a vast hollowed-out space. And in the center, a mound, higher than the crematoriums. Dozens of bodies layered carefully, some skeletal, some fresh. Torches lined the walls. Around the mound knelt nearly 50 ghouls, all turned toward the intruders simultaneously. Red eyes ignited in the dark. Ward didn't hesitate. Burn it. Flamethrowers roared. Fire arced outward in wide cones. Ghouls screamed and scattered. Some rushed forward into the flames without hesitation. One operator vanished beneath 3 bodies at once, dragged down screaming as claws tore through armor. Puck fired, controlled shots into skulls. Natalia moved in fluid arcs, slashing tendons, pivoting away from snapping jaws. Audrey grabbed a fallen UV floodlight and shoved it into the face of a charging ghoul. Its skin smoked violently under the concentrated beam. It recoiled long enough for Tyler to drive a bullet through its eye socket. The mound caught fire. Flames climbed upward, igniting cloth and hair. The smell of burning human flesh filled the chamber. A deep roar cut through the chaos. The patriarch emerged from behind the mound, fully upright, 8 feet tall, antlered bones scraping the arch overhead. Its fur was thicker now. Its wounds from South Philly nearly sealed. Its eyes burned brighter than any UV light. The ghouls parted instinctively as it stepped forward. Ward aimed his flamethrower. The patriarch moved before he could fire. It crossed the chamber in a blur and seized Ward by the chest plate. Metal crumpled under its grip. It lifted him effortlessly and slammed him into the brick wall hard enough to fracture it. Ward fired point blank. Flames engulfed both of them. The patriarch roared, not in pain, in fury. It hurled Ward across the chamber. He hit the ground and rolled, armor dented but intact. Tyler shouted, "Focus fire!" Bullets struck the patriarch's chest and limbs. Black blood sprayed. It advanced through the impacts. Puck fired at its knee. The joint buckled slightly. Natalia darted behind it, slashing at the tendon. Her blade bit deep. The patriarch swung backward with terrifying force. Its forearm caught Natalia across the shoulder. She flew sideways and crashed against the rail arch. Her scream echoed through the chamber. Audrey reached her first. "Shoulders cut, but not broken," Audrey said quickly. Tyler locked eyes with the patriarch. It stepped toward him deliberately. "You carry defiance," it growled. Tyler didn't retreat. He grabbed a fallen flamethrower and ignited it. A white-hot stream engulfed the patriarch's torso. For the first time, it staggered backward. Its fur caught fully. Fire crawled across its shoulders and antler protrusions. The smell intensified. It roared. The chamber shook. Ghouls charged in desperation. Puck intercepted two, breaking one's arm backward at the elbow and snapping another's jaw sideways. Audrey ignited a second accelerant canister and rolled it beneath the patriarch's feet. The liquid splashed upward as it stepped. Tyler fired again. Flames surged higher. The patriarch slammed both fists into the ground. The shockwave cracked brick and extinguished nearby torches. The ceiling trembled. Dust cascaded downward. Ward rose unsteadily and shouted, "Collapse charges!" Two operators rushed to place shaped explosives along weakened arch supports. Ghouls swarmed them. One operator disappeared beneath clawing hands. The other triggered the detonator prematurely. The explosion ripped through the chamber. Brick collapsed inward. Rail beams snapped. The mound of corpses toppled sideways into flame. Tyler grabbed Natalia and dragged her toward the exit corridor. Puck covered their retreat, firing until his slide locked back. Audrey seized Ward's arm and pulled him upright. The patriarch stood amidst falling debris, burning, black blood pouring down its chest. It locked eyes with Tyler through smoke and dust. Not defeated. Not yet. The ceiling gave way fully. A cascade of brick and steel crashed down between them. The fourscores dove into the side tunnel as the chamber collapsed behind them in a thunderous roar. Dust swallowed everything. Silence followed. Surface. They burst from the maintenance shaft minutes later, coughing, covered in soot and blood. Sirens wailed in the distance. The ground trembled faintly as the collapse settled below. Natalia leaned against the sprinter, clutching her shoulder. Puck pressed gauze against a cut along his temple. Audrey's hair was singed at the ends. Ward stepped out last. His armor cracked. Face streaked with ash. He looked back toward the sealed shaft. "He's not dead," Tyler said. Ward nodded slowly. "No." Smoke drifted from beneath street grates across Center City. Pedestrians looked around in confusion at the faint tremor. The city above remained intact. For now. Ward turned toward Tyler. "He'll retreat to the oldest structure left." Tyler's mind moved quickly. "The crematorium." Ward didn't argue. "He'll gather what remains of the colony." Puck cracked his neck once. "Then we finish it there." Far below, in a partially collapsed chamber sealed by rubble, the patriarch stood amid the ruins, burned flesh hanging from its shoulders, antlers cracked but intact. Around it, surviving ghouls crawled from debris. Its red eyes burned steadily. War had begun, and it was not yet finished. Smoke still seeped from sewer grates across Center City by dawn. News outlets blamed a minor underground gas detonation beneath an abandoned rail spur. Structural inspectors swarmed the perimeter. Transit officials assured the public there was no ongoing danger. They were wrong. Commander Elias Ward stood over a new map inside the warehouse command center. One red cluster remained active. Thayer Street, specifically, beneath the original Lutheran Burial Foundation, predating the crematorium. "They retreated to the oldest sanctified ground," Ward said. Tyler leaned forward. "The original 1847 congregation." Ward nodded. "The crypt beneath it was sealed when the crematorium expanded. We believe that's where the patriarch nested before modern rail construction." Audrey traced the layout. If the junction chamber collapsed, he'd retreat to familiar territory. Puck adjusted the tape around his ribs again. "Cornered animals fight hardest." Ward met his eyes. "He's not an animal." Natalia's shoulder was tightly wrapped, but she rolled it once and nodded. "Then let's go meet the founder." Thayer Street, final descent. Night returned thick and heavy. The crematorium stood silent again at the end of Thayer Street, but the ground around it was wrong. Subtle depressions marred the asphalt, like something had burrowed upward before retreating. The 406 remaining BSTRD operators entered through the shattered basement entrance from their previous fight. The furnace room was colder now. The candles gone. The mound of bodies removed, dragged elsewhere. Only a jagged hole remained in the brick floor where something massive had broken through. Ward shone a UV beam into the opening. A spiral staircase of old stone descended into deeper darkness. "Original crypt," he said. They descended single file. The air grew older, not damp like tunnels, dry, dust-heavy, ancient. German scripture lined the circular walls in careful devotional carving. Audrey translated softly as they passed. "Fleisch ist Erlösung." Flesh is salvation. Tyler's jaw tightened. At the bottom, the staircase opened into a vaulted chamber supported by brick columns blackened by age. And there, the nest of the dead. Rows of stone slabs formed concentric circles around a central altar of stacked bone, not random remains, organized. Skulls arranged in careful spirals, femurs forming rib-like arches overhead. At least 50 bodies lay in varying states of consumption and preservation. Some were recent. A few still twitched. Low moans drifted through the chamber. Natalia's voice dropped to a whisper. They're converting. Ward's beam swept across the far wall. Ghouls stood silently in rows. At least 30 remained, scarred from the tunnel collapse, burned but alive. And at the center, the patriarch stood atop the bone altar. Its burned flesh had partially regenerated, antler protrusions cracked but regrown, jagged and sharper. Its eyes burned steady and bright. It did not roar. It did not rush. It watched them calmly. You return, it said. The voice resonated through the chamber without breath. Ward stepped forward. This ends tonight? The patriarch's lips peeled back slowly. Your fire delayed us. It stepped down from the altar. Nothing more. Ward raised his arm. Engage. The final descent into violence. Flamethrowers ignited the outer ring of ghouls. Fire crawled across fur and bone. Screams echoed against stone vaults. 2 ghouls leapt forward through the flames. Puck intercepted one midair, pivoting into a hip throw that slammed its spine first against a column. The brick cracked. Natalia darted behind another, severing its Achilles tendon before finishing with a precise upward stab beneath the jaw. Audrey hurled twin accelerant canisters into the inner circle. Tyler fired controlled shots into advancing figures. Ward's UV beams carved pale arcs through the smoke, but the patriarch advanced steadily through flame and gunfire. It moved directly toward Tyler, as if drawn. A ghoul lunged for Audrey. She pivoted, driving her elbow into its throat, then seized a femur from the altar and smashed it into the side of its skull. Bone splintered. Black blood sprayed across her face. She didn't hesitate. Another ghoul tackled a BSTRD operator. Claws tore through armor. The operator's scream cut short. Ward incinerated both bodies in one brutal burst of flame. The chamber filled with thick, choking smoke. The patriarch reached Tyler. It swung a massive arm. Tyler ducked, but the backhand clipped his shoulder and spun him sideways. Pain exploded through muscle, not broken, but close. Puck rushed in, driving a knee into the patriarch's damaged joint. The bone gave slightly. Natalia stabbed into the wound from the tunnel collapse. Her blade struck something deeper this time. The patriarch roared, the first true sound of pain. It seized Natalia by the throat and lifted her again. Tyler lunged, slamming a metal hook through the patriarch's forearm. Audrey followed instantly, plunging a syringe of concentrated accelerant directly into the creature's exposed chest wound. Ward shouted, "Now!" Tyler ignited the flamethrower at point-blank range. Fire engulfed the patriarch completely. The accelerant inside its body ignited from within. Flames burst from its chest cavity outward. The patriarch staggered, its grip loosened. Natalia dropped and rolled free. The creature swung blindly, smashing 2 columns apart. Brick rained down. The vault ceiling cracked, but the flames did not extinguish this time. They burned hotter, deeper. The patriarch tried to retreat toward the altar. Puck tackled its leg from behind. Audrey wrapped the iron chain from the cremation hooks around its antler growths and pulled with full body weight. Tyler drove the metal hook through its opposite shoulder and anchored it to a column. The patriarch struggled violently. Flames roared higher. Its skin blackened and split. Black blood boiled. For the first time, its red eyes flickered. Ward stepped forward with one final burst of concentrated flame directly into its open mouth. The patriarch's roar fractured into a shriek. The antler protrusions cracked apart. The chamber ceiling finally gave way. Stone and brick collapsed around them. "Out!" Tyler shouted. They ran. Behind them, the patriarch remained impaled against the column, engulfed. Its eyes locked onto Tyler one final time. Then they extinguished. The collapse swallowed the chamber completely. Surface, silence. The 4 scores burst from the basement seconds before the crematorium caved inward behind them. Brick dust filled the night air. The chimney cracked and toppled sideways into the street. Fire licked upward briefly before federal suppression teams moved in. Ward stood breathing hard, armor charred. "It's done," he said quietly. Below them, the remaining ghouls burned or were crushed. The colony's heart had stopped. Natalia leaned against the sprinter, exhausted but standing. Puck pressed a hand to his ribs again. Audrey took Tyler's hand briefly. He squeezed back, stable, alive, but changed. Ward looked at the ruin. This colony is finished. Tyler stared at the smoke rising into the night sky. One colony. Ward met his eyes. Yes, somewhere far from Philadelphia, in a different city, in a different mortuary. A pale hand rested against a coffin lid from the inside, and faintly, two red eyes opened in the dark. The patriarch was dead, but death did not end hunger. It fractured it. Fracture. At 8:17 p.m., 2 nights after the crematorium collapse, power flickered along Market Street. Pedestrians barely noticed. A transformer popped somewhere near a SEPTA junction. The lights dimmed, then stabilized. But beneath the pavement, something moved. Without the patriarch's command, the surviving ghouls no longer knelt in order. They scattered, feral, hungry, and terrified. The collapse of the crypt had crushed dozens, but not all. Some had been cut off in secondary tunnels. Some had been away hunting when the chamber fell. Now they surfaced blindly, driven by instinct rather than structure. And instinct demanded flesh. The first attack. It began outside a late-night bar 3 blocks from City Hall. A couple stepped out laughing, arguing playfully over an Uber. A sewer grate rattled. The man glanced down just as it exploded upward. Clawed hands seized his ankle and dragged him screaming into darkness. Blood sprayed across the sidewalk. The woman screamed. A second ghoul vaulted from beneath a parked car. Its jaw unhinged and closed around her face. Bone cracked. She dropped instantly. Screams erupted across the block. Phones came out. Someone shouted, "Bear!" Another screamed, "What is that?" The ghoul pack emerged in full. 5 of them. Burned patches still visible along fur. Antlers snapped unevenly. No formation. No coordination. Just frenzy. They crashed into outdoor dining tables, overturning chairs and scattering civilians. A man swung a bottle. The ghoul bit through his forearm and tore it free. Blood fanned across storefront glass. Sirens began almost instantly. But this time, the 4 scores were already nearby. Response: Tyler had insisted on staying in Philadelphia until federal cleanup concluded. He was walking with Audrey near a coffee shop when the first scream hit. He didn't hesitate. "Market Street," he said. They ran toward the sound. Puck and Natalia were 1 block over filming follow-up footage on infrastructure damage when chaos spilled into view. A ghoul barreled through a glass storefront and emerged carrying a limp body in its jaws. Natalia's expression hardened. No more tunnels. Puck drew his pistol. They converged in the center of the street as civilians fled in every direction. 1 ghoul crouched atop a flipped sedan, red eyes scanning wildly. It spotted Tyler first and charged. Tyler pivoted left and fired twice. The shots tore into its chest, but it didn't slow. Puck stepped in from the side, delivering a brutal roundhouse kick to its damaged knee. The joint snapped. The ghoul collapsed but clawed upward, catching Puck's thigh. Fabric tore. Blood flowed. Not deep, but enough. Natalia lunged in, driving her blade through the base of its skull. The ghoul convulsed violently, then fell still. Behind them, Audrey tackled a second ghoul that had seized a civilian by the collar. She drove her elbow into its throat and twisted its head sideways with surgical precision. The vertebrae cracked. It kept fighting. She grabbed a broken metal chair leg and drove it through the creature's eye. Black blood sprayed across her arm. It fell twitching. 3 more ghouls tore through the street in opposite directions, slashing randomly at anyone too slow. 1 leapt onto the hood of a police cruiser, claws raking across the windshield. The officer inside fired blindly through the glass. Bullets punched through the ghoul's chest. It didn't drop. It ripped the door open and dragged the officer halfway out. Tyler sprinted forward and slammed a steel trash can lid into the creature's face. Puck followed with a joint-breaking twist of its wrist. Natalia severed the tendons behind its knee. The officer rolled free as the ghoul collapsed, but not before sinking its teeth into Puck's forearm. Puck roared and drove his thumb deep into the ghoul's eye socket, ripping the eyeball free. Audrey fired point-blank into its skull. It finally stopped moving. Federal intervention. Black SUVs screeched into the intersection. BSTR operators poured out, flamethrowers igniting without hesitation. 2 ghouls attempting to climb a bus were engulfed in flame mid-motion. 1 tried to leap away. A concentrated UV beam caught it mid-air. Its skin blistered instantly. Ward stepped from the lead vehicle, firing controlled bursts of incendiary rounds into the final surviving ghoul. It staggered into the center of Market Street, burning, feral. It looked around wildly, then locked eyes with Tyler. Recognition flickered there. Not personal, instinctual. It lunged. Tyler sidestepped and drove his boot into its chest. Audrey slammed an accelerant canister against its torso. Ward ignited it instantly. The ghoul collapsed in a screaming pillar of fire. Within seconds, silence. Smoke drifted across shattered glass and overturned tables. Sirens layered over distant screams and helicopter rotors. Civilians stared at the carnage in shock. Blood ran into storm drains and dark streams. Ward moved quickly. Contain media. Seal perimeter. Casualties to unmarked units. BSRD teams began confiscating phones. Police tape went up, a cover story already forming. Tyler looked down at Puck's bleeding arm. Let me see. Puck flexed his fingers. Didn't break skin deep. Audrey examined the bite. Teeth marks. Shallow. She disinfected immediately. Natalia exhaled slowly, scanning the street. That was the last of them. Ward approached. For this colony, he corrected. He surveyed the carnage. Without the patriarch, they revert to instinct. No coordination, no ritual. Tyler looked at the burning bodies. So this was desperation. Yes. Ward's gaze moved to the skyline. Philadelphia is clear. The words felt strange. Clear, as if something had been lifted. But Tyler knew better. He met Ward's eyes. How many more colonies? Ward didn't answer directly. Enough. Cover story by morning headlines read, Gas explosion triggers chaotic animal attack. Transit disruption blamed for structural collapse. Witness accounts dismissed as hysteria. The Foursquare's footage of giant rats had already gone viral. 3 million new subscribers in 5 days. But no ghoul footage remained. Every file confiscated. Every live stream scrubbed. Except one. Natalia had cut the feed seconds before agents seized devices. Just enough remained to suggest something unnatural. Without revealing everything. Controlled fame, contained truth, quiet rooftop. That night, Tyler and Audrey stood on a rooftop overlooking the Philadelphia skyline. Smoke no longer rose from the crematorium. Market Street glowed normally again. You okay? Audrey asked. Tyler nodded slowly. For now. She slipped her hand into his. Stable, grounded. Below them, the city moved unaware of how close it had come. Natalia's laughter echoed faintly from inside the motel room. Puck argued about cheesesteaks again. Life returning. But somewhere in the Midwest, in Milwaukee, in a small, aging mortuary basement, a pale hand pressed against the inside of a coffin lid. The wood creaked, faintly. 2 red eyes opened.